Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. If you have a car question for Bobby, call now at 1-800-264-5454, toll free from anywhere in America. And now, here's your host, Bobby Likis.
And thank you, Marty White. Welcome to this hour of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Ride along with me, and let's talk cars, and I'll share with you some information. Already shared some tremendous information earlier in today's broadcast, and with regard to applications that allow wireless updating of automobiles real time, so that if you have a recall that doesn't involve anything physically being changed on your automobile, that dealer can do so wirelessly, and that will save you trips and save time, and it will also update the safety of the fleet. The fleet being that fleet of automobiles that falls under that category. Open the phones, 888 Car Clinic, 888-227-2546 if you'd like to call. This segment of Bobby Likis Car Clinic is brought to you in part by General Tire and the all-new Ultimax RT43, a smarter tire for a smarter driver. Visit GeneralTire.com for more details. And over the next few weeks, folks, I'll be sharing my review of the General Tire RT series on my own personal test car. You're going to be surprised. I'm surprised so far. I'm sort of collecting all of the valid points and a few things that I might want to change as well, but you'll hear about that soon. Also, this hour brought to you in part by our partners and friends, Royal Purple, my choice for all synthetic oils and lubricants. I'll be back after the break. I'm Bobby Likis with today's Fact or Friction, brought to you by Royal Purple, the performance lubricants that outperform. Fact or Friction. Additive packages are key in synthetic oil quality. Fact. Of a quart of synthetic oil, 15 to 25% is its total additive package, including anti-wear agents, detergents, dispersants, and antioxidants. An oil's additive package does the heavy lifting, and ultimately its lubrication factor, friction and heat reduction, and ability to rev up performance are measures of an additive package's quality. Royal Purple's proprietary Centerlec technology was developed over years of rigorous testing and real-world use. Fact is, Royal Purple solved a vibration problem with the China Star 125-mile-per-hour bullet train. When choosing oil for your vehicle, consider Royal Purple high-performance motor oil. Visit RoyalPurple.com for all the Royal Purple advantages, then pick up Royal Purple today at Pep Boys. I'm Bobby Likis with today's Vehicle Maintenance Spotlight, brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Midlife crisis and gas crisis may not be preventable, but you can avoid the crisis caused by a dead battery. Drop by O'Reilly Auto Parts for a free battery check by an O'Reilly Auto Parts Pro. If you need a new battery, pick up a reliable, hard-working Superstart battery that's an exact fit for your vehicle. To make sure your battery's ready to go when you are, stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts, better parts, better prices every day.
O'Reilly. Eventually it's going to happen. You'll turn the key and your engine won't start. Don't lose your ability to get around. Visit O'Reilly Auto Parts for a Superstart battery. Whether it's a reliable economy, hard-working premium, or powerful extreme, you'll find it at an everyday low price. Don't let a dead battery slow you down. Visit O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Geico Auto Insurance customers are frugal people. They value $1, and they save a lot of them by switching. To prove my point, I'm joined by a real live customer, Erica Willis. Erica, will you give me $10,000?
No.
There. Proof that Geico customers do not like to part with any more money than they have to. Call 1-800-947-AUTO. You could keep 15% or more of your money. 1-800-947-AUTO. Geico Direct, the sensible alternative.
Some original thinking by Starbucks barista Bob Glenn.
My idea of a Starbucks experience is a sense of community. I love people, and what working at Starbucks has allowed me to do is get involved in people's lives more directly. What I think is so great about Starbucks coffee being available in the grocery store now is that Starbucks selects the coffee, roasts the coffee, packages the coffee to enjoy it, and not just to enjoy it necessarily by yourself, but really to enjoy it with other people.
Your favorite Starbucks coffee. At grocery, at home, at lab.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
Okay, let's get started. Before we do, I want to reach out to Rogers, Arkansas. I have been to Rogers, Arkansas. The Dial-A-Trade station in Rogers, Arkansas, KURM 790 AM. Kermit Womack, General Manager, Program Director, an all-around fantastic individual. That whole family, the Womack family, they're an asset to the broadcast industry, actually to the local communities as well. I happen to know that. And the military also, our military is better off with the Womack family. So a special shout out to KURM 790 AM in Rogers, the Dial-A-Trade station there in Arkansas, and our beloved, and I use that word with a smile on my face, Car Clinic affiliate right there in Arkansas. Let's go to New York. And John called in first. So, John, you're going to be first up. And then I see Jim and Victor. And, folks, we'll take your calls. Kim will take your calls at 888 Car Clinic. That's 888-227-2546. Put you in a queue, and I will put you on the air. John, you're on the air. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
How you doing, Bobby?
Fine, sir. Thank you. And how about yourself?
Doing good, doing good.
Good.
I have a 2006 Chrysler Pacifica.
Mm-hmm.
It's got the 3.5 liter
Yes, sir.
engine, and my cooling fans won't come up. And I've done two things. There's a relay up front.
Mm-hmm.
It's underneath the bumper, connected to the frame. I replaced that. And I was having problems with my fuse box, and I replaced that.
What kind of problems? What kind of problems with the fuse box?
Well, one of the relays, that's for the ignition, it was corroded.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And I'd be going down the road and the car would cut off.
Yeah, it's an ASD relay. It's an automatic shutdown relay. And when you turn the key on, but that relay is mirrored. There are several relays that use the same part number. And as long as you see, and just as an FYI, if you ever get caught out on the road and you have some relay that fails, you can look in the relay box, and if you've got two of the same relays that have the same part number and the same prongs, then you can pull the one out. Let's say there's one that's there for power windows. Well, if you put the windows up, you don't need those to work, so you can temporarily borrow that relay and plug it in there. So how did you fix the box?
I replaced the whole box.
And did it come with a wiring harness and all the? Yeah, sure it did.
No, well, the wiring harness. If you take the fuse box out, underneath is where all the harnesses connect. Underneath the fuse box.
And does it plug into one big master connector? Or I thought the wires terminated into the fuse into that box itself.
No, there's a harness they connect. There's several harnesses.
Okay.
They connect underneath the
Did you replace?
box.
Did you replace those harnesses as well?
No, I didn't.
Okay, let's move on. So the bottom line, you had this problem and the fan was working before you had this problem, and then after you replace the box, the fan doesn't work. How does that work? Give me chronologically the brief story.
They kind of happened about the same time.
Okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to turn the air conditioning system on.
I've tried that. I've done that. To see if the fan kicks on?
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't. No, I've tried that.
Well,
I'm just curious if there's another sensor, another temperature sensor.
Well, yeah, but that's neither here nor there, because turn the air conditioner on, that system's going to come on. Period. I mean, unless it's minus 30, unless it's under 35 degrees or whatever the threshold is that they don't allow the compressor to kick in, and then you would need the fan. But my question, I guess my next question is: have you supplied power to the fan motor, and is the motor good?
Yes, what I did is I hot wired the fan motor.
Okay.
Well, it runs all the time. I don't want my car to overheat.
Yeah, you can't do that. That'll ruin the alternator. So, what's your question to me?
Is there another sensor, a temperature sensor that would make those?
Sure.
Okay.
There's a sensor on the intake manifold that triggers the relay that turns the fan on, independent of the air conditioner. There's a sensor in the air conditioner pressure system that turns the relay, that also sends power to the relay that turns the fan on, separate from the engine temp, so that when you turn the AC on, if it's summertime, you turn the AC on, within 30 seconds, the fan's going to come on. If your fan's not working from either power source, which is not, and the fan is good, which you've confirmed it is, you've got a wiring problem, and I'm concerned because you replaced the corroded box, and that corrosion doesn't stop at the box. I mean, it's like saying I got a corroded battery, and I pull the terminals off, and I put a new battery in, and I put the terminals back on, and you didn't clean them, or you didn't look at the cabling adjacent to the little terminal. And cabling it's called covered up with a plastic sheath.
Right.
But a lot of times the cable inside the battery terminal that should be nice, copper, beautiful, is all corroded and is almost like dust. I mean, it's corrosion in wires with today's cars is the kiss of death. Mm-hmm. And you're going to have to take this to a certified techie, ASE, and I say techie because not every ASE technician is a techie. And when I'm speaking of someone who loves the fact to check ohms resistance from point A to point B and has a wiring diagram. Do you have such a shop?
No, that I don't.
Okay,
have,
let me give you a way to find one.
Okay.
You got to do this, and then you can, from the comfort of your own home, John, you can make several calls and find out who's on first. And when I say that, I mean you talk to the owner, and you'll determine very quickly by the buzzwords that I gave you, i.e., do you have a wiring diagram for this automobile, specifically this 06 Pacifica? Number two, how many Chrysler products would you normally say you work on in a week? Those are the kind of questions you should ask.
Right.
And that site is asashop.org.
Okay.
And within 5, 10, 15 miles, make some phone calls and have a conversation. And I don't know. Gosh, I'm now being protective of the shop. I don't know how much information you should share with them. It may turn some of the owners or shop managers off if you tell them you've replaced the box and you have problems, because then they're going to open Pandora's box. That's the way it appears. And I mean, and I just want you to know, because replacing a fuse box is no trivial pursuit, especially in a car with all sorts of computers and wiring harnesses and other things, and then you had a corrosion problem, and that's really way over the top as well. So I have a concern there. So I guess the best thing to do is just be absolutely open with them and say, here's my predicament. Can you help me? And then you're going to get to the final, but yet the first question: how much will you charge me? It's impossible for them to know what it's going to take to fix your car without getting into it, and that's why you need to have a relationship and a conversation up front so that you have some sort of a trust factor, like you and I have, although I've never met you, but I'm telling you the truth, and you're telling me the truth, you're giving me the facts. Find someone that you feel comfortable with, like you and I enjoy the relationship that we obviously do, and then meet them face to face and build on that relationship, and that will save you money, and that'll get you closer to getting your car fixed. You got it?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. Yep. All right, my friend. Thanks for your call.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. asashop.org. Okay. In Sebring, Florida, and I've been there many times, Peter Coughlin is the general manager and program director of Car Clinic's affiliate, WWTK 730 AM. And when I think of WWTK 730 AM, I think of Avon Park, I think of Sebring, and I think of all those related highways. Sebring is sort of has its own little place geographically in life that brings back fond memories to me. from times when I drove to Sebring annually, to catch the 12-hour race at Sebring. And what a great time that was. At that time, a gentleman, John Dean, owned the Checkered Flag. Have no idea that John is still in business, or the Checkered Flag, I presume, is still there. So if you're listening on WWTK 730 AM in Sebring, let me know if the Checkered Flag is still out there on, is it 27? Gosh, it's been a while. I'm going to take a short commercial break, and then I'll see Victor is calling from Washington, and with a very technical question that I'm really interested in discussing, and I'll take your questions at 888-227-2546, of course, when I come back. Your life demands a tire that provides durability, comfort, and performance, and that's what General Tire delivers for you. From the all-season grip of the Grabber UHP to the comfort and on-road manners of the Grabber HTS to the durability and off-road traction of the Grabber AT2, General has a tire that will help get you where you need to go. So let us take you on the next big adventure. Tweet us photos at General Tire, hashtag anywhere is possible. Because with General Tire, anywhere is possible.
My car's a sauna. What's with this air conditioning?
You need an AC Pro.
Know any?
Yeah, you.
You got me confused with somebody else.
You're a pro with new do-it-yourself AC Pro, the 10-minute cold air solution.
But
You know where to find the hood?
That thing up front?
Exactly. AC Pro's easy, fast, and saves you money. You'll have your car's AC blowing cold air in minutes.
I did it! It's like a freezer in here.
Be a pro with new AC Pro, the 10-minute cold air solution.
Got a sweater?
I'm Bobby Likis with today's Engine Care Spotlight, brought to you by CRC Industries. Black may be a fashionable color for clothes, but not for your engine's intake valves. Today's gasoline direct injection, GDI, engines increase fuel economy and power by spraying fuel directly into the combustion chamber. But GDI can cause black carbon buildup on engine valves when oil seeps past intake valve guide seals, then sticks, burns, and forms heavy carbon deposits. The result is often restricted airflow, poor vehicle performance, and even drivability issues. Pour-in fuel tank additives can't reach the backs of carboned-up valves, but you can reach them with a new patent-pending CRC intake valve cleaner. CRC intake valve cleaner is delivered through the air intake system to effectively dissolve carbon deposits for improved MPG, increased power, and smoother idle. Keep the color black in your closet and off your intake valves with CRC intake valve cleaner. Find more automotive maintenance solutions at crcindustries.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Live from Progressive.
Flo here. Today we're talking to
Newlyweds.
Hi, my husband and I are combining our policies, and my mother-in-law says we can save with Progressive.
Well, with online, homeowners, and multi-car discounts, saving on car insurance is easy.
So you're saying she's right?
I'm saying get used to it.
Get great savings and more at 1-800-PROGRESSIVE and Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, Mayfield Village, Ohio. Discounts not available in all states. Prices vary based on how you buy.
Mikey steals the tissue. He breaks right. Now left. Clock says 3 a.m. He shoots the tissue and off the lamp and into the basket.
Cold symptoms keeping you from getting a good night's sleep? Get NyQuil, the nighttime sniffling, sneezing, coughing, aching, stuffy head, fever, so you can sleep better to feel better medicine. Use as directed.
Go to sleep.
Uh-oh, there's a heckler in the crowd.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome back to this segment of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. My new sweepstakes, Bobby Springs for free fuel ups. I don't know who makes these names up. My team does. But it's up and running on carclinicsweepstakes.com. So what does that mean? Well, you don't miss the opportunity to win prizes, including a $250 Visa card from Renewable Fuels Association, our ethanol partners, a royal purple leather lambskin jacket, which is beautiful, and I have one, and I've been using it. Fancy that. And I'm not a jacket guy. You know, if I'm going to run out from the studio to the car, I'll just, the heater will be on. I don't want to take the trouble to put a jacket on, but that's not the case anymore because it's a really soft, warm, great jacket from our partner sponsors, Royal Purple. So they've given me a jacket to give away. And also, our team has given me, well, sort of, a $500 gas card, and it's from yours truly. So all you have to do to enter to win is go to carclinicsweepstakes.com. As always, be sure to keep an eye out on our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Pinterest, and Instagram for awesome contests and giveaways. Victor from Washington, it's always a pleasure to have you on the air. Victor, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic today.
Thank you. You have a lot of information you can't get anywhere else.
Thank you. I don't sleep much at night.
But anyway, you said about electric valves, and that must be operated by a solenoid, but can they keep it out of the oil? They have to hook it up to the valve stem, and the valve stem has to be lubricated some and so forth. How is that done?
Well, just like a variable camshaft engines today, there are solenoids already in engines, and the new transmissions have not only the solenoids, but the black box, the module that controls the transmission bolted into the transmission itself, and wires going through the bulkhead.
So the electrical mechanisms, is that repulsion or attraction on the solenoid?
Well, it would have to have a valve that would electronically. Well, that's a good question. Here's the challenge, as I understand. The valve would have to, of course, be opened, and there's pressure that wants to open the valve, so you'd have to have a strong current. It could not, as I understand, be done with a weakling, and a weakling would be like, for instance, on a let's say a cylinder reduction, like a regular GM V8. So you've got oil flow that goes to the lifters. That oil flow has, and of course, you got to have the lifter fill to open the valve. So if you starved the lifter of a certain cylinder from oil, the cam would go up and down. The valve wouldn't move because there would be no oil to the lifter, so the lifter would just exercise up and down, but it would not have the ability to trap the oil to push and force hydraulically, because it's a hydraulic ram. That's what a hydraulic lifter is, the valve to open. Those solenoids are already in the engine. And to that end, the real challenge, and has been, how do you seal the wires that go from the engine and or the transmission that come out of there, because you got to have power coming and going. And Mercedes had some problems, Victor, early on with transmission fluid that would wick its way from the transmission up and through the floorboard to the transmission control module that was located under the passenger's floorboard. And lo and behold, you'd have a transmission problem. It would be in limp home mode, where it just stuck in one gear and you got 35 miles an hour to get to a shop. You have to have some safety features. You can't have an engine or transmission that goes into neutral or quits running altogether because of an electrical component, although that happens. So we would take the floor mat out and the little cover that goes over these units, and the floorboard's full of oil, transmission fluid. Well, I say full, it would be like you spilt a half a cup of coffee and you thought you got it up and it wasn't there. But,
now, is the valve, is that line up down in the block? It isn't valve and head. Does the push rod go up and come back down off a rocker arm in the head, or does it, or did it go back the old way they used to have? They used to call it the old L blocks or whatever it was, where they had the valve down the block and they had it lined up.
Well, it would be a direct acting solenoid. So it would be a solenoid that was under the camshaft, like overhead cam, and then the computer controls, upon driver's demand, the computer and other road speed, engine speed, and what have you, the computer controls the oil flow that goes to that particular device, and that device would either open the valve or not open the valve. Because if it didn't have oil, if oil was bled off, then it wouldn't have the ability to push the valve open. But it uses a spring to close the valve. Those systems use a spring to close the valve.
Oh, so it's got the spring and the solenoid both.
Yes. Yeah, well, the solenoid controls oil flow to the lifter, and it could be a cam follower. It doesn't have to be a lifter. You know, a lifter is a hydraulic lifter that rides on top of the cam. A follower is like an overhead cam, and it pushes down on the top of. So you've either got a follower that is secured to the stud on one side, and the other side of that follower pushes on a valve that opens it, and the valve has a spring. And then you got a cam that turns and the shape of an egg, and whenever the high part comes around, it opens the valve. That's a mechanical way to do that. But with electric solenoids, it's a whole new animal. You know what we'll do? In the interest of time, I'll put together a report for next week's program on electric control valves, because here's the reason. Think about this, and this is where the new. Are you familiar with Atchison design engines?
I guess not. No.
Okay. Well, you can do some homework this week as well. But it's really interesting. It's a little more technical than what some of our listeners might want to hear. But here's the bottom line. And I mentioned earlier about the Volt, the first Volt that we bought, and that General Motors made. They plucked an internal combustion engine off the shelf and put it in the car. It said this is a generator, 1.4 4-cylinder, because it was easy and they wanted to get it to market, and they didn't want to go to the time and expense at the time to build a specific engine that is made to generate power for the Volt. But they had to have something to generate power for that extended range to take the range anxiety out. Having said that, the next gen Volt, and I presume you've heard me talk about this, and we had a gentleman, Mr. Jesse, on that talked about the Volt just last week. And we just touched on the 12.5 to 1 compression ratio engine. I found it was very interesting that GM now has built an engine specifically as a generator, internal combustion engine, to generate power. And I'll tell you what I really find interesting about that, Victor, is that same technology surely will find its way into motorhomes. You know, I mean, we all know about Onan generators. I mean, those are old-fashioned lawnmower engines. That's kind of a slam, and I don't mean that in that fashion, in that way, in that manner. But I had a motorhome for 10 years, had an Onan generator, and it was just simply an 8 kW, or as I remember, 10 kW generator with a lot of noise. So if you think about having a 2 or a 3 or a 4-cylinder generator, and one that was specifically made not to vibrate, and was specifically made to take advantage of a low-octane gasoline and yet generate power at low RPM. Normally, if I think of and we have a generator in case we have a power outage in the studio here. But I can't stand to hear that thing run. We have to put it outside, of course. But it screams. It must turn 3,500 RPM. It sounds like it turns 5,000. So I said all that to say, and your question was, how do electric valves work? Electric valves, and I'll talk about this more next week so that I can be more well-versed and give you the correct information versus making up what I think how they work. But some that I know that work today use solenoids that control oil flow to the very hydraulic followers or valves that open the valves, and the valves are always closed with the springs.
So they basically, the solenoid adjusts the amount of oil in the slack adjuster.
Yeah.
And
yes.
that's what makes the valve open sooner or later.
That's correct. But here's the great part about that. Yeah, you said it better than I. Here's the best part about that. If you use total electric control, not only can you decide when to open the valve and how far to open the valve, but you can control each cylinder independently. Think about that.
Yeah. Now, another thing you said, you said when they on the intake valve to have a higher compression, but put in less air by leaving the valve open while the piston come back up,
That's
pushing
correct.
the air back.
That's exactly right.
Okay, but I always heard, and they always say, the more oxygen you get in your cylinder, the cleaner burn you got, and the whole thing was to get more oxygen in there, more air in there, so that you got a better burn. Now, you're kind of defeating that.
Well, wait, we're not talking about oxygen. We're talking about the amount of air. Okay, if you've got a lawnmower engine, if you got a 60 cubic inch engine, it displaces X amount of air. If you've got a 500 cubic inch engine, it displaces more air. A 500 cubic inch engine will make more power than a 60 cubic inch engine. So it's not about the oxygen. They all burn the same oxygen depending on the input. I mean, unless you put ethanol, which has a molecule of ethanol contains 35% oxygen, but that's a different story. I mean, it's not applicable to what you and I are talking about. You and I are talking about how much air to compress, because it is the compressed air and the volume of compressed air on top of the piston that determines the power. Once it's mixed properly with the proper recipe of fuel, that determines the power it drives the wheels. So...
You know, on the diesel engine, they come with the turbo.
Wait, exactly. And that it's not just diesel. Ford's EcoBoost, the EcoTech for GM, those engines. That's pretty standard old technology. Because all you're doing is okay. Let's back up. There's no such thing as vacuum. When a piston goes down in the engine, it creates a void, and atmospheric pressure follows that void and pushes its way in. Unless you've got a turbo or a supercharger, and atmospheric pressure then is doubled or tripled or determines on the controls. Victor, you stay right there, folks. I'll be back. You're moving fast, and you don't want anything to slow you down, especially an unreliable battery. Be sure the next time your car needs a new battery, you choose one with PowerFrame grid technology. It's not only 66% more durable than other grid designs, it's manufactured with the latest, most sustainable processes. Look for PowerFrame on the outside for true strength on the inside. To find a retailer near you, visit PowerFrame.com. That's PowerFrame.com. I'm Bobby Likis with today's Drive Smarter tip, brought to you by Escort, the world's best radar and laser detectors. For best road trip MPG, do you roll your windows down or use AC? Based on aerodynamics, a slick car with windows up offers less resistance and glides through air more easily, using less gas at highway speeds, even with the AC on. This Drive Smarter tip is brought to you by Escort's Passport Max, the first and only all-digital detector with HD radar performance. Don't just drive, drive smarter. Escort.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Another great place to use Visa.
Is there anything more satisfying than watching a snowflake fall, gently carried by a delicate breeze to the welcoming earth, and then thrashing it on a ripping snowmobile? If you want to have fun in the snow, make tracks to Unicorn Expeditions in Lake Parlin, Maine, where the cabins are as cozy as the trails are smooth. But if you want to buzz the powder, you better bring your Visa card, because at Unicorn Expeditions, they take kindly to sled heads, but they don't take American Express. Visa, it's everywhere you want to be.
So, how about you and I getting together?
I don't know. I have to get up early.
Ma, I'm on the phone!
Oh, sorry, dear.
You live at home?
Looking for a home? Click on to Realtor.com and search over 1.3 million current home listings. Plus, you can find useful information on schools, financing, even take virtual tours. And when you're ready, you can click and connect with a Realtor.
Hello? Are you still there?
Yes, dear, I'm right here.
Realtor.com. It's the place to start when you start looking for a home.
Hello once again, and welcome to How Stupid Can You Be? The show where folks tell us all about the outrageously stupid things they've done. Please join me in welcoming today's guest, Sarah. Now, Sarah, you're 23 years old, and you recently did something really stupid, didn't you?
Yes, I bought alcohol for my younger brother and his friends.
Wow, she bought alcohol for minors. That's one of the stupidest things anyone could ever do. Am I right, audience?
Of course, I got caught, arrested, charged with a felony, and I could get up to 6 months in jail.
You tried to buy alcohol for minors, and all you got was trouble. That's all for now, folks. Coming up next, a man who performed his own root canal at home. How stupid is that?
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. Underage drinking. It's arresting behavior.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And I want to welcome you back to this segment of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. We're talking with Victor from Washington, rather technically speaking, about electrically controlled valves and those sorts of things. If you have a question, and Victor's still with us, and I'm going to go back to Victor very shortly, but if you have a question, it doesn't have to be a way technical question. It can be simple. And just for you to know, there are no dumb car questions. Well, I'll take that back. There is one dumb car question. It's the one not asked. Because when you take your car into a service shop, you need to know the right questions to ask. And that's where I can help you. I'll give you the buzzwords because that's what I do and have done for years in the automotive service industry. So the buzzwords that I give you will empower you to better understand the nature of the car that you drive and to know the right questions to ask, just like a doctor. And speaking of doctor, that reminds me of O'Reilly Auto Parts. And I say this, and no, this is not a commercial. It's word of mouth. Spreading word of mouth. What's the best way to build a business? I've been in the business, automotive service repair business, for 43 years. Word of mouth exceeds any other form of advertising, period. And I think that's true. I believe that to be true for doctors, for lawyers, for automotive service technicians, and in my case, for auto parts. I deal directly with a very convenient located store, O'Reilly Auto Parts, that's a stone's throw from our service shop. But it is the service that we get from the O'Reilly Auto Parts guys, their team, and delivery people. It's unbelievable. We literally electronically order a widget or a dozen widgets, and within minutes, literally, we have a driver showing up at our door delivering that part, and we can look at O'Reilly Auto Parts Smart Page and compare. A Smart Page has not only the part number, folks, it has a picture of the widget that we're replacing. So if you need a left-hand widget or a right-hand widget, you can look at the part number, then you can say, well, what does that look like? And click on the link, and it shows you an image, and it's not just the image of the widget. It shows you the front, the side, and the back view in most cases. I got to say, they make us look good. When we look good in our service department, people talk about us, and we get word-of-mouth advertising, word-of-mouth promotions. And so I give to O'Reilly Auto Parts that very same word-of-mouth, me to you, because it works for us. And we're just lucky that we've got O'Reilly Auto Parts, and you can look for O'Reilly Auto Parts in your neck of the woods and check them out and see what kind of service they provide for you. I think you're going to like it. Okay, open the phones. The phones are open, 888 Car Clinic. Kim will take your call at 888-227-2546. Victor, you're still with us, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we're talking about engine valves. Let me just share this with you and then your questions. The Atchison engine that GM designed specifically for the next-gen Volt is a 1.5-liter, 12.5-to-1 compression ratio gasoline engine that runs on regular 87 octane. My question, and I challenged this yesterday morning in Dallas at the National Renewable Energy Fuels Conference, the National Ethanol Conference in Dallas. I challenged, or I simply asked Dr. Brian West, how does that work? And he said, well, they're using solenoids to control the valve so that not all of that pressure is trapped, so they can control the pressure depending on the gasoline. After they left the stage, there were a panel there, and a moderator, Robert White, who has joined us from the ethanol industry before. He's an avid motorcycle person, and is very technical, and is a great man on the street to have. I can tell you, knowledge is unbelievable, deep. But the bottom line is, I asked Brian West, the Oak Ridge National Lab gentleman, I asked him this question. After the event was over, Coleman Jones, a PhD from General Motors from their powertrain division, who was attending the conference, walked over and explained to me that it did not have 12.5 to 1 compression ratio. It was an Atchison engine. He said it's effective 12.5 to 1 compression ratio. And then he started to get into some technical terms, and I saw right then why he had the PhD after his name. I need to get him. But it was kind of interesting to hear the exchange between Brian West and Coleman Jones, because Brian West says, well, that just means you're controlling the air, the valves, and Brian West said it, Victor, just like you said it. The piston goes down, air goes in. When the piston starts to come back up, you close the valve, trap the air, and pressurize that piston. And depending on the swept volume is how much compression, static compression determines the pressure, and the pressure dictates the octane demand of the gas. That's all pretty simple stuff, right?
Right.
Okay. So what do they do with the Atchison? They don't close the valve. They leave the intake valve open and let the piston start coming back up, push some of the air back into the intake manifold.
Yeah, and that's where I have a question, is that everything I've learned, and on the diesel engines, and I've run them, that the more the turbo pumps in more air, which is more oxygen, and therefore you can put in more fuel and get more power because you have the oxygen to burn the fuel.
It is, you have to get the oxygen out of your mind. It is more air. It is the volume of air. It is not the oxygen content.
It isn't.
No. It is.
Well, oxygen is what burns the fuel, though, isn't it?
Well, no. The product of air, the air-fuel ratio burns the fuel, but how much oxygen is there in air? What?
Well, that's kind of static unless you have more plants around. I guess they put the oxygen, but you happen to be around a field or something with a lot of green. It might be a little different, but there isn't much difference. It's pretty well mixed all over what we breathe, all over the world.
Well, yeah, exactly. But okay. But you're fixated on the oxygen. Maybe you're not.
I'm fixated on the burn. See,
but the burn is a combination of air. Not oxygen. Not oxygen. There's more.
Not oxygen?
Well, what is oxygen made of?
Well, oxygen is what burns, I thought, everything. Like even rust on steel, that's oxygen burning, or a stump turning red. That's
but you're talking pure oxygen when you start to burn. If you use acetylene torch and you start to flame, you could cut the acetylene off and use the pure oxygen and glowing, but you don't use pure oxygen. We don't breathe pure oxygen. When you go to the hospital, they give you oxygen. Otherwise, I think we breathe 22% oxygen.
Is there other things in the air that burn besides the oxygen?
Well, yeah. I'm not a chemist, so I mean, I don't know what is the makeup of oxygen. I mean, anybody in the control room answer that question? What other?
Oxygen is just oxygen, but it's 80% nitrogen, 20% oxygen in air.
Okay, 80% nitrogen, 20% oxygen. So
nitrogen doesn't burn, does it?
The combination of oxygen and nitrogen is the air-fuel ratio of gasoline. For example, for every gallon of gasoline, Victor, that an engine burns, a gasoline engine burns, it must have 9,000 gallons of air. And that air is 80% nitrogen and 20% oxygen. Thank you, Jimmy. So when you say more oxygen, you put more oxygen content in an engine, and you'll smoke and fry the engine because it controls temperature. So we're not talking about oxygen content specifically. just like the air that you breathe. When you go to a hospital and your body is not making oxygen, when they do the simple tests on your finger, and your oxygen content is below 98% or whatever that threshold is, mine usually runs 98, 99%, and you're ill, or you have some lung problem, generating the oxygen in your blood, then they give you pure oxygen, which is very flammable, yes, but you don't use that in engines. You don't think of that. You think of the mass air flow, and air is 80% nitrogen and 20% oxygen. So,
right. I'm learning something, but I still see everything, including like we're a machine. We eat our food, but if we don't get our oxygen, we can't burn the energy in the food. The oxygen actually is burning the energy in the food in our bodies.
But study what oxygen contains, and don't think about oxygen. In other words, if you have a bourbon and water, and you put 50-50. Half a half bourbon and water, you have a bourbon and water drink. If you put ice in the glass, now you've got less than 50-50. You've got 60-40, and if you let it melt, you're going to end up with 70-30. So you still have the same drink. You still have the same 8-ounce glass of ice and alcohol and water. So in an engine, because you keep referring to turbochargers. Turbochargers and have more to do with the amount of time a valve is open and the throttle is open, and the atmospheric pressure that forces air into the cylinder when the piston goes down and creates a void. But if you don't have the atmospheric pressure, i.e. if you're in Denver, Colorado, and you're mile high, you have less atmospheric pressure. So an automobile engine without a turbocharger will make less horsepower and torque in Denver than it will in Pensacola, Florida, because of the altitude. So that's where turbochargers come in, and that's why manufacturers today are downsizing, downspeeding, which means they're taking smaller engines. They're increasing the compression ratio. They're adding turbochargers to force more air. So you've got a 60-pound young person that has the strength of a 160-pound young older person, because you're forcing the muscles to be bigger. You're giving bigger muscles. Now, when I say that, if you've got an engine that displaces, let's say, 10 cubic inches per cylinder, you can get X amount of air in that cylinder, but based on the atmospheric pressure. But if you have a supercharger or a turbocharger, during the door open, the valve open, the throttle open, and you've got more pressure than atmospheric pressure, you're going to force more air in the same given length of time. And when you trap that air, you have a more powerful expansion that forces the wheel and opens. And I will say this, and then I'll turn the mic back to you. If we had a hurricane outside our door, and we're safe in the studio, and we opened that door and we had a 150-mile-an-hour wind, the pressure would absolutely force. And if we had a window open, it would force so much air through our door versus the calm of a day. So think of a turbocharger and or a supercharger as forcible hurricanes. And when you open the door, i.e. the throttle of an engine, that is connected to the opening of the valve of an engine, you can cram more air in the same length of time, and therefore trapping more air. So you can have a 60-pound baby gorilla producing the strength of a 100-pound grown gorilla, because you've packed that much more air on top of the piston, and then you mix the proper amount of fuel with it, and voila, you've got an EcoBoost Ford. You got it?
Yeah, I remember back when I first found out about the turbo, was way back in about the end of the 50s, about 1950 and 60, when they had the old 200 Cummins engine we used to truck with, and then they put the turbo on it and went to 262.
Well, and what about airplanes? I mean, that's where like nitrous oxide. See,
but that was just pumping more air in. They always told me it was the oxygen burning it, and you're pumping more oxygen.
Yeah, it's pumping more air in. Forget the oxygen.
Okay, and now that's one thing I'd like to know. You'd have to go to a technical person to get it. But what else is burning in that air mixture with the fuel? The nitrogen, is that actually burning, or
it is? You're asking the wrong person that question. I will get Brian West on the program from Oak Ridge National Lab, and we'll have to do a call in, and we'll have to set that stage because that's a fantastic question, and there's no question in my mind that would be beneficial to our listeners because here's a very valid point. In order for the recipe of any quality cake, you have to have the eggs and the batter and the water and whatever it is that you make food with, okay, to do it properly. Or to make bread, the yeast, okay. With air and fuel, with gasoline, hydrocarbons that burn, again, it's not the gasoline that burns, it is the fumes that burn. Gasoline will not burn. It is the fumes that burn. So The trick is, and the challenge is, how do we take this liquid and make it into a gaseous and put it? That's why compressed natural gas is a no-brainer for larger trucks, as I said, municipalities, because the engines run cleaner, longer, because you're not converting liquid into gas because you can't burn liquid. So what we're doing today, and I'll close with this, and this is a great conversation that we'll have to pick up next week. What we're doing today is we're taking 87 octane gasoline, 84 octane. We're adding 112, 10% ethanol to get it up to 87. We're mixing that at 14.7 parts air to 1 part fuel, which is stoichiometric, and that is the cleanest burn, and that's what we're doing with cars today. The amount that you get in depends on the size of the engine and or turbocharging. I'll see you next week, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Victor.
Likis Car Clinic is a copyrighted presentation of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated and may not be reproduced or rebroadcast without the express written approval of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated.
Another ding in the Car Clinic inbox. Thomas in Malibu is buying a set of tires. But first, he wants to learn best practices for tire care and maintenance. Thomas, these tips are courtesy of General Tire, celebrating its 100th year. Pressure is key. Inaccuracies in pressure, high or low, can affect tire life, wear, performance, and fuel economy. Also, plan to rotate tires on a regular basis, typically every 6,000 to 8,000 miles. A proper rotation schedule helps promote improved tread wear and overall tire life. And remember, wheel alignment should be checked every time your tires are rotated to prevent tire drag. With today's technology, it's never been easier to maintain your tires. For example, General Tire's Ultimax HP and Ultimax RT feature a visual alignment indicator that will spotlight uneven wear due to improper alignment so you can take corrective action. For more details, drive to GeneralTire.com. That's GeneralTire.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Driving a cab in this town can drive you nuts. It's like hurry up and wait. Last week, I'm stuck behind a bus on Broadway when that pastrami on ride catches up with me. Ooh, heartburn big time. Guy in the back seat says, "Here, take a Zantac 75. I say, "What are you, a doctor?" And he says, "Yeah."
Zantac 75 relieves heartburn anywhere, anytime.
A real gentleman, that doctor.
Zantac 75, the heartburn relief doctors trust.
Sweetie, this wedding reception will need an elegant dessert.
What do you think about the caramel flan?
Darling, I think it'd be perfect, but please, dear, it's caramel flan.
Mother, I really think it's caramel.
It's caramel.
A lot of people call it caramel.
Yes, if you keep a sofa on your porch like your fiancé. We might as well serve kamikaze shots.
Everyone knows the best part of a Milky Way. They just don't know how to say it. After all, it's our caramel.
It's caramel.
That makes a Milky Way great.